Good morning, this is Dominic with TheBackVlog. Recently I finished reading Metal Gear Solid, Hideo Kojima's Magnum Opus. The camera's on that side. It's usually on that side, but I have it on that side for some reason today. Yeah, I mean, this is, the dangers of online shopping, where you'll see a thing that you didn't need, pick it up, and you never read it. I bought this like 3 or 4 years ago. It was sitting on my shelf ever since, and I was like, I keep looking at where the camera's not. It was sitting on my shelf for 3 or 4 years, and I never got around to reading it. And I finally read it, and it's not bad. It's really cool that it delves into the history of what was happening with Kojima and Konami back in the day, whenever they had a better relationship than they do now. It talks about how he got his start, and then once Metal Gear Solid came around, basically the history of the development, discussing how much of a cultural zeitgeist it was, talking about like the technical innovations, and the complex narrative of it. So I think that's really cool that it talks about the early history, and then the history of the games. It also goes into basically a very detailed account of the entire story of Metal Gear. That part did meander a little bit. I guess it was a good refresher to get, though, because I haven't played the Metal Gear Solid games in like 7 or 8 years, maybe. I played all of them in chronological order rather than the order of release. So I played Metal Gear Solid 3 first, and then Peace Walker, and then Metal Gear Solid 5, and then Metal Gear 5 to Metal Gear was one of the most. That was a jarring experience. Yeah, I mean, I like those games though. I do like Metal Gear. I think Metal Gear 2 is really underrated though. But I'm not gonna talk about the games. I'm gonna talk about the book, Hideo Kojima's Magnum Opus. I'm gonna break that title down a little bit, because so you have all this historical information and all this, narrative information regarding the plots of the games. And afterwards you have, essays, very opinionated essays. They discuss like the music and the art design, and Hideo Kojima's genius and prophetic nature. There's a lot of good analysis in this book, and it's really insightful when it comes to its information and its retelling of the story. But a lot of these essays do kind of come off as pretentious a little bit. They do read as pretentious. They're definitely Kojima fanboys. I used to think I was a Kojima fanboy. I really do like Kojima. I haven't played his early stuff. I haven't played Zone of the Enders. I've played nothing but the Metal Gear Solid series and Death Stranding, which Death Stranding is one of my favorite games of all time. But I feel like it's not because of... I mean, I guess obviously it is because of Kojima and his genius, but there's like a personal connection I have to Death Stranding. That, Kojima, unless he is a god, which he's not, was able to foresee. That was purely by coincidence. And the essays, like, the opinions that they are expressing in these essays are very well articulated, but it's just like, it's like listening to, like a philosopher, no pun intended, because of the philosophers in Metal Gear Solid. It's kind of like listening to a philosopher kind of like give this really elaborate thought, this really interesting thing to ponder, but the way that he says it is in such a pretentious way that like you kind of want to slap him a little bit. That's kind of what this book read off as. It's worth a read if you really, really like Metal Gear Solid, or if you think Kojima is a god. Otherwise, I don't really know if I would ever revisit this, because a lot of it is information that I knew already, and the information that I didn't know already is cool that I know that, but I don't know if I need that in a book. And if I were to want to read over this information again, I would prefer to read like a magazine from back in the day or something. As for the essays in here, I don't know if I personally got much out of them. I want to see if there's anything in here specifically that I did like, because I don't like talking about stuff. Like, I don't like to complain about stuff. I think there's too much complaining on the internet. I want this to be like, you know, I read this thing that's really cool. Oh, that's another thing it talks about. It actually talks about the secondary Metal Gear Solid stuff as well. So it talks about like the other Metal Gear 2 that wasn't heralded by Kojima. It talks about like the side stuff like Acid 1 and 2 and Ghost Babel, and the graphic novels and the arcade cabinets, and Rising Revengeance. Yeah, I mean, it talks about those games too, and I think that's really cool. I would say get it if you really like Metal Gear Solid. Otherwise, don't. This thing is also riddled with typos because it was translated from French, and I guess it was poorly translated because not a lot of QA was put into this. But, you know, the cover's cool.